Well, hello, Roland. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So it's been a little while since we've talked last, and so I thought it would be good to just get kind of a refresher on how you started, how you got into this, and the origin of the Purple Papers.
Sure. This whole journey for me has been a lifetime experience. It started when I was a young kid. I would follow things around the house, and my mother would say, "Oh my God, what is he up to again?" And she wondered what it was that I was following or what it was that I was doing, but I was feeling this something inside of me and something was guiding me. And when my grandmother passed away, I mean, it just flourished from there. I saw her 3 days after she died in my bedroom. I saw her standing at the end of my bed, and it began this pretty extraordinary experience of seeing, knowing, feeling, hearing that there's something more out there. And I have been giving messages and telling stories from that moment. So 47 years of telling people that love is everlasting, that the connection exists, that they are with us, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And something that I remember from our conversation last time that I was really interested in was your healthcare background and
Yes.
how the uh, bringing healing to people became this kind of segue into this new version of that for you.
Yeah, this was a great point because I spent a lot of my career helping to heal the physical body. And then I was dealing with patients that were elderly and their bodies were tired, but we did a lot of work at trying to help them stay as healthy as they could until the end of their lives. And then it switched into this healing the soul kind of thing where, people that are before me and like I've seen thousands of people and they're all grief stricken and broken. And to give them a morsel of something so they can breathe, there's some kind of healing going on there. Though, again, I have to say publicly, my lawyer says, I have to give you this big line. My lawyer says I can't say there's any healing going on, that it's entertainment purposes only. But listen, last night I was in a room, and in that room there was a woman who was beyond words about the passing of her husband 16 months ago. And when she cried, she wailed out a sound that was unbelievable, right? And the second the message came, it began to do something for her. So in my nursing career, I've done a lot about healing the body. And in this particular part of my career, I spend a lot of time helping people find some peace about loss in their lives.
Sure. And I appreciate your disclaimer, certainly. But anecdotally, this is we all connect to each other as human beings through conversation and spending time together. So whether or not one is a particular believer in the healing power of this, at a very basic level, you're communicating with people about very difficult, challenging events in these people's lives, and
Yes.
and I think it's hard to deny that kind of connection has value in and of itself.
Yeah, you make another very valid point because something very remarkable happens in that room. In the room, when someone is getting the message, the whole audience becomes part of humanity in that moment. And they stretch beyond their own pain, their own grief, and they step right into that space with the person that is broken. So you're right. I mean, I have to say what I have to say from the lawyer's perspective, but I honestly, I say it like a joke because I think it's hilarious because what I see in a room and in an event with lots of people is the transformation from grief and brokenness to a moment of catching someone's breath. That's where the power is in that moment.
Sure.
It's incredible. I got to say, it takes my breath away generally when someone lays down their grief for a moment and stands straight up and strong and ready to walk out into their lives again. I think we've accomplished something when that happens.
That's fantastic.
Mm.
Well, we were talking a little earlier about how I'm getting ahead of myself. Remind me and our viewers what the purple papers are.
So the purple papers are pre-written messages that I hear. So I hear these stories in my head, and I take them from my being, and I write them on 11 by 17 purple papers. And I write exactly what it is that I hear, see, feel, sense, whatever it is, and I write them out. And I do that before I walk into a room with an audience. I do it before I enter a venue, and I've written them already. And by the way, when I write them at that moment, they get posted to social media immediately so that no one knows there's any indiscrepancies here. So I write what I feel, and I photograph them, and I send them out. So they are messages that are coming from our loved ones with their names, their situation, their life experience, their life history, their story on them. And they have become very profound in their storytelling, really, because they're now depicting some of them an entire life history, right? There's one purple paper that says the name Helen St. Pierre. I have no idea who Helen St. Pierre is. There's a purple paper that says Mr. Manzoni. I have no idea who Mr. Manzoni is, right? But these words and these messages come in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, and I transcribe them on these purple papers. And then I walk out into a room or into some place, and we discover that they are exactly where they belong. And I
And
find the rightful owner, Nick, I find the rightful owner.
and what's kind of the time frame on typically how long you have that purple paper before it's distributed?
So I have papers in my possession from the year 2005. So I have a few left from 2005. I have a few left from 2008 to 2011. And then I have a lot left from 2018 and 17. So I write, you could say I write about 50 pages a week, 50 papers a week. That's probably an average. And I hold on to them, and some of them are held on for a long time. I'm still waiting for the Walcott family, which was from 2005. I'm waiting for the LaFrancois family, which was written in 2008 or 9, So I hold on to them until I am absolutely sure I have found the rightful person.
Oh, that's it's interesting too, because we were talking earlier about how uh, you you seem to feel that you're getting more details into
Yes.
the newer purple papers. What do you think accounts for that?
I have to say that I think it's just because my abilities are getting clearer. I think I'm getting clearer. I think that there is a great need for the people here in our lives to receive a message. I think there's a need from the afterlife to tell us that we're not alone. I have to say to you that my reason for giving a message is really to teach someone to live in love right now. Really, that's really the truth of it. Because time after time, I see people in front of me who didn't have a chance to say goodbye, who didn't say, I love you one more time, who didn't have closure, who didn't have something, right? And I think the teaching, the papers tell us that it's important to love. It's important to love each other, and it's important to be connected to each other. And I think that that's what happens with those papers. And I think that the papers showcase that. So they say their name, their history, who they found on the other side, what they have with them, how they died, how they lived, the regrets they have in their lives about not doing something. Can I just tell you another quick story?
Yeah, please.
So last night was an intense night in Rhode Island, but last night there was a woman in the room whose father was not a very nice father. By the time we were done having a conversation and delivering messages to her. She walked out of that building sobbing. She had to be helped out of the building to get air. But when she came back in, she was not the same person. Something inside of her was lifted. Something happened to her, something happened to her. It was because of the message. It's because of the purple papers. It's because of her willingness to go on that journey.
Yeah.
It's also because of her father's willingness to admit his frailty in his life, because he wasn't a great dad. And it was remarkable to see her go through what she went through, and to receive what she received from that experience. Now, I know I'm a little long-winded, Nick.
Oh, better long-winded than short-winded in these interviews.
I diverted from your original question, but the papers really are something else. They're mind-boggling on every level.
Well, have you found that this additional detail in the papers has had any kind of effect? Is it easier to find the right owner, or is the message more powerful, or is it easier to get somebody who's more skeptical to believe it? Has that had an effect on your experience?
So they are much more powerful. I mean, and the thing that's most significant is that it's directed to one person. Everyone can say, oh, well, I know Robert who died, right? Everybody may know a Robert that died. But when you hear how Robert died, who he was, what he went through, a date or a circumstance on that purple paper, it transforms everything in that moment. So I think that they're just telling an amazing story. Now, can I get the skeptical people to believe? I doubt it. And I'm not on a mission to do that. I'm not in a mission to tell anybody what to believe at all, ever. It's not in my jurisdiction to get you to believe what it is, that what I do is real. My job is to say, this is what I felt. This is what I offer you. And do you want to have that experience or not? And if you say no, I respect that. So the messages themselves are powerful themselves, Nick. They've changed in such a way that people in the room, when I read the messages out loud, right, people lose their breath for a minute, and it's not even their paper, because the message is so profound and so detailed and so precise.
Yeah, and something you said a little bit ago hit me, where you talked about their willingness to go on a journey. Their willingness to sit in the room with you. Their says again, if whether you're a staunch believer in what you do, a skeptic in what you do, or somewhere in the middle, the fact that they're there says to me that they're interested in moving beyond whatever it is that brought them there. Like, maybe they don't know how, but they want that healing.
Yeah, you're right. I have a lot of respect for the people that sit in that room, right? In any of the rooms, any of the events or venues, I have a lot of respect, because here's the problem, or the challenge, or the gift of it. If I look at you and I begin to tell you the story that is accurate, then you have to come back to the realization that your loved one has died.
Sure.
And you have to relive that all over again. And what if I don't speak to you? If I don't speak to you, then you say to yourself, well, maybe nobody loves me, or nobody cares about me anymore, right? So you have these two parts of the spectrum that are so diverse from each other, but it takes a lot of courage to walk into that room. Not everybody who comes into a room, though, or into an event or to an experience, comes with a willingness to have an experience. They garner that experience the second they begin to hear what's going on in the room. They begin to realize, oh my God, I am here for much more. And they then begin this journey to their own healing. It's remarkable. It's very remarkable to me how it all works.
Okay, well, you mentioned that you're now nowadays, and clearly social media has developed a lot since you began doing this, but you made the
Yes.
decision to start posting these things on social media and doing, I believe, weekly Facebook Live
Yes.
presentations. What was your hope or your intent in doing that?
You know what it really was? This is kind of behind the scenes, Nick. I need
Getting
to
the good
deliver
stuff.
those. I need to deliver those purple papers. I have to deliver them, and they weigh a ton now, and I have a lot of them to deliver them. And I'm not out there in the world enough. I can't be on the road 7 days a week in front of audiences 7 days a week. So I figured this may be a good way to illuminate the possibility to those out there that love is everlasting, that messages exist. So I go on live every Wednesday. I showcase those purple papers. I read them out loud for the audience, and all of a sudden, people start talking about them. You know what else happens? They start talking about their own messages, how they get
Okay.
messages. They start taking what they believe and pushing it a little further, and so my intention was to showcase the love and the energy and to showcase the message and hopefully to deliver a purple paper. Now I have to tell you what happens though when someone comes on and they say, "Oh my God, that's my father. I know it is." If I don't have the feeling, then I can't give the paper away, right?
It's
But
a
if it
different
is,
dynamic than it is in your show, where you're more of the gatekeeper of that.
exactly so. Now it's an entirely different experience. So now I have to I protect it a little bit more. But if I start to have that feeling, this is the right person, then I arrange a private consultation with them for free. I mean, I'm not looking for anything here. I want to deliver those papers, and then we make a discovery if it's theirs or not theirs. And
Okay.
if it is, we mail it to them. We send it to them, and we've sent them all over the world already because they are not mine to hold, they're mine to deliver. That's all.
Well, I'm sure all of this makes you a very busy gentleman, and in addition to all of that, you do these shows. And you know what? Actually, I'll before we get to the show at the Avalon, there's one other thing you've been busy with, and that is your book.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning it. I'm very excited about it. It's called Signs of Spirits, the Purple Papers and the Stories Behind Them. And it's a look at the stories, 45 stories of the people that were touched by the purple papers, written by the people themselves. So my voice is very absent in the book, except for in the beginning and in the end. So it's
Okay.
not a book about me. It's a book about the people and the love and the eternal love and the connection. So it's heartwarming. It's heart expanding. It's heart touching. It's a very, as far as I'm concerned, it's a very beautiful book, and we're excited that Llewellyn Worldwide, an international publisher, is launching it on August 8th, and so it'll be available all over the world, basically.
Okay, and if somebody was interested in picking it up, would they just look to Amazon or their local brick and mortar store? Where's the best way for them to get it?
All of the above, and they can go to Llewellyn Worldwide website. They can go to my website, rolandcomtois.net. They can go to Amazon. I just saw that it's also being sold at Target.com, and so you can go all over the place to find the book.
Oh, fantastic!
Thank
All right,
you.
now we'll get to the show. Last time we talked, you were developing a stage play, and
Yes.
what you were saying is that this show that you're doing here is kind of what that ended up evolving into. So why don't you describe what this show will entail?
So this is a one-man stage reading performance. So it's my working with the script and telling the story of my near-death experience. So some 30 years ago, I was doing a small venue, a small event with, I think there were 8 or 9 people there, and I collapsed and I was gone. My cousin and her friend were hosting this event, and they ran to me, and my cousin was tapping my skin and trying to find my pulse, and she said my skin was as cold as our deceased grandfather some years before, and she knew that I wasn't there. I knew they were doing something, but I also felt myself separating and following a light. I saw you've heard people say the white light, right? That
Right.
they see the white light at the end. Well, I saw the white light. I saw that white light. It was calling me. I felt it. It was moving me. I was separating from my physical body, and I stepped into that light. And so what we're doing at the Avalon is I am telling that story. It's about 45, 50 minutes of telling that story with original music by Stephen Lupo. I'm also singing the songs that I've written for this play. There are 3 of them that I'm singing here. So it's a bit of a play stage reading performance of my being on the stage, telling the story of my journey all the way to that place and all the way back, which includes songs and lyrics that I've written for this play. All of it tells the story that there is something more, and as everything I've done, it tells the story that we have to love right now, because it's the love that is the guide, the marker that moves us along. And I got to tell you, like, I'm sitting here talking to you, and the minute I start talking about this, I feel the energy all over again.
Yeah.
It's very moving to me when I talk about it. It's almost as if I feel it all over again. And so one of the most profound moments of my near-death experience was the unconditional love that I felt. It was unbelievable. And I can't even begin to articulate it in a language that would be understandable by any human ears, because it just doesn't have that. It was something so powerful. So the show that we're doing at the Avalon is that part of that one-man stage show, followed by a 1-hour channeling event. So I'm going to tell the story of my near-death experience, sing a couple of songs. They'll get to hear beautiful music, and then come back for some purple papers and some messages after our intermission.
Okay. Now, would you say, and I'm not sure is a perfectly reasonable response to this question. I'm interested in how the difference between this show versus the shows that you've done in the area in the past. Do you think that the new kind of stage play element supports the channeling? Does the channeling support the message of the stage play of the everlasting love? How do those two, now that you have kind of 2 different pieces with 2 very different types of interactions, how has that show changed?
So they complement each other, obviously, because when I had my near-death experience, I saw people. I saw my grandmother. I knew they existed. And what it did for me, though, it solidified the idea that the messages that I hear aren't just the imagination of some guy, right? So it's the continuity of the story. So it's telling the story of the near-death experience and bringing back, if you will, the messages of the eternal connection that exists between us. So they're complementary. Though if people are expecting a 2-hour channeling event, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, maybe show them through my own personal experience what the afterlife looked like, sounded like, felt like, and bring that energy to the audience. And then step out there with them and say, this is what I have to say to you now. I've been waiting for you. And I walk out into the room and start delivering the messages that I heard. Now, I will say to you that this is going to be the first. We've only done this once or twice before, and most of it has been in rehearsal. So this is the first time that we're stepping out, but they are a complementary experience. So if you're interested in the afterlife, then the first half of the show you're going to love. If you are interested in getting a message or hearing how messages are showcased in an event like this, you will love that aspect of it as well. So they complement each other. They complement each other, and that's really the gist of it.
Yeah, no, that was a good description. Kind of helps explain. I mean, clearly your overarching message of the everlasting love and needing to express that, both of those made sense, but I think your explanation kind of explained why it's so important for those two to be presented together.
Yeah, it almost feels like to me that when I'm telling the story of my near-death experience, that when I returned, I came back to deliver messages. So now I'm returning from this, this play, returning with the messages that I have to deliver. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do the play or the stage performance, reading performance. I'm going to go on a short intermission. I'm going to go get the messages I heard. I'm going to transcribe them on purple papers, and then I'm going to walk back out into the audience. It's almost like I went back up there to get a few more messages to bring them back to the audience themselves.
Sure. Now clearly, as you've said, you it's been more in development and rehearsal, but do you find that reenacting that experience, though I'm sure as you've said, it's hard to put that into any tangible form, but does that increase the amount or the effectiveness, or are you getting more messages or more direct messages or more complete messages in reliving that in that stage play?
Well, what I am getting is more clarity, actually.
Okay.
Much more clarity about how how it all works. So every time I step into that space, because I'm not just telling the story, I'm stepping back into that space, into a memory, into an experience. And I'm able to, as we all are with our memories and experiences, bring that energy into this present moment. So I go back into that space. Hopefully the audience is walking on the journey with me and
Sure.
wanting to discover the messages at the end. So it's all kind of tied together somehow. But each time I step into it, my hope is that I get even stronger. I get even better at something.
But that is the type of reconnection for you.
Yes, it is. It's reactivating that memory. It's reactivating that feeling. It's reminding me that I'm not alone. And when I'm in that space, it's reminding me of this beautiful experience that I had. And then it reminds me that I also have a responsibility, though. Sure. And I have a responsibility with this. I can't just take this for granted or take it lightly. I have to do whatever it is I'm supposed to do, because one of the things that happened in my near-death experience was the voice. Everybody says they hear a voice. Some say go back. The voice said that I had to go back, but I had to go back and tell them to love each other and to love now, for love was truly eternal. I had to come back and deliver the messages. And that's what the second half is all about, delivering the messages that I was told to bring into this experience.
Well, I think your message of love and healing is one that we all need, and I always enjoy sitting down with you and seeing what you're up to. Looking forward to your event here at the Avalon. Do you have the details of that event?
It's June 22nd at 8 o'clock at the Avalon Theater. I forgot the town all of a sudden.
In historic Houston, Maryland.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, it was a real pleasure talking with you, and
thank you.
And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Nice talking with you too. Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.